The woods were quiet, too quiet. The sun, a dying ember in the sky, cast long, eerie shadows. I walked deeper, each step heavy with dread. The air grew cold, a chill that seeped into my bones. I shouldn't have come here. Everyone warned me. They said these woods were haunted, cursed, but I didn't listen. Now, as twilight deepened, I felt a growing sense of unease. Something was wrong. I could feel it. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves. But these weren't the sounds of nature. These were whispers, faint and filled with malice. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. My heart pounded in my chest. Fear, cold and sharp, gripped me. I quickened my pace, wanting only to escape this place. But the whispers followed, growing louder with each step. I stopped, my breath catching in my throat. Someone or something was watching me. I could feel its eyes on my back, cold and calculating. I whirled around, my heart hammering against my ribs. There, in the shadows, I saw them. 2 points of malevolent light, staring at me with an intelligence that chilled me to my core. A low growl, guttural and menacing, echoed through the trees. The growl turned into a snarl, the sound sending shivers down my spine. Terror lent speed to my feet. I ran. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The sound of my own ragged breathing filled my ears as I crashed through the undergrowth, desperate to escape the nightmare that was closing in. Branches whipped at my face, drawing blood, but I didn't dare slow down. Behind me, the snarls grew louder, closer. Whatever was chasing me was gaining. The forest floor seemed to reach up, trying to trip me. I stumbled, falling to my knees. Pain shot through my leg, but I couldn't stay down. I had to keep moving. I scrambled to my feet, adrenaline masking the pain. Ahead, I saw a faint light, a beacon of hope in the gathering darkness. With renewed determination, I surged forward, praying it wasn't too late. The light grew stronger as I ran towards it, resolving itself into the outline of a cabin. It was a beacon in the darkness, a solitary structure standing against the encroaching night. The trees around me seemed to part, guiding me towards this sanctuary. Smoke curled from its chimney, a promise of warmth and safety. The sight of it filled me with a sense of relief I hadn't felt in days. The cold, biting wind seemed to lose its edge as I imagined the warmth inside. Hope surged through me. Maybe, just maybe, I could make it. My heart pounded in my chest, not just from the exertion, but from the sheer possibility of finding refuge. Each step felt lighter, driven by the promise of safety. I burst into the clearing, my lungs burning, legs screaming for respite. The forest had been relentless, its shadows and sounds a constant reminder of the dangers lurking within. But now, with the cabin in sight, I felt a renewed vigor. The cabin door stood ajar, inviting me in. It was as if it had been waiting for me, a silent guardian ready to offer protection. The soft glow from inside spilled out, casting a warm, welcoming light. For a moment, I hesitated, fear warring with exhaustion. What if this was a trap? What if the safety I sought was an illusion? But the warmth, the light, it all seemed so real, so tangible. But the sound of approaching snarls decided me. The forest was alive with threats, and I had no choice but to trust in the promise of the cabin. The growls grew louder, more menacing, pushing me to act. I lunged for the door, slamming it shut behind me and fumbling for a lock. My hands trembled as I secured the latch, every second feeling like an eternity. The door was my barrier, my shield against the unknown terrors outside. Silence. I was safe, for now. The cabin's interior was a stark contrast to the chaos outside. It was quiet, almost serene. I leaned against the door, feeling the weight of my journey lift off my shoulders. The warmth of the cabin enveloped me, offering a brief respite from the cold and fear. I knew I couldn't stay here forever, but for this moment I allowed myself to breathe, to hope, and to believe that maybe, just maybe, I had found a glimmer of hope in the darkness. I leaned against the rough-hewn wood of the door, my chest heaving. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, mingling with the faint, acrid smell of smoke from the hearth. My breaths came in ragged gasps, each one a reminder of the frantic escape that had led me here. Gradually, the pounding of my heart slowed to a dull roar in my ears. I closed my eyes, willing myself to calm down, to find some semblance of peace in this moment of reprieve. The silence of the cabin was almost deafening, broken only by the occasional crackle of the fire and the distant hoot of an owl. I was safe. I had escaped, for now at least. The relief washed over me in waves, but it was tinged with the bitter knowledge that this safety was temporary. The cabin, with its rustic charm and flickering light, was a fragile sanctuary in the midst of an unforgiving wilderness. The cabin was small, a single room lit by a flickering oil lamp. Its walls were adorned with simple handmade decorations, and the furniture was sparse but functional. A small table, a few chairs and a rickety stool were all that occupied the space, aside from the hearth that provided both warmth and light. A fire crackled in the hearth, casting dancing shadows on the walls. The flames seemed to have a life of their own, their movements hypnotic and almost comforting. They were a stark contrast to the cold, dark woods outside, where danger lurked in every shadow. I sank onto a rickety stool, drawing in deep, shuddering breaths. My body ached from the exertion, and my mind was a whirlwind of fear and confusion. Each breath was a struggle, but it was also a reminder that I was still alive, still fighting. As the adrenaline ebbed, the events of the past hour came crashing down on me. The chase through the woods, the feeling of being hunted, the sheer terror that had driven me to this remote cabin. It all seemed surreal, like a nightmare from which I couldn't wake. I was alone, lost in the woods, hunted by something I couldn't even name. The forest, once a place of solace and beauty, had become a labyrinth of fear and uncertainty. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent shivers down my spine. And the worst part? I knew with chilling certainty that my ordeal was far from over. The sense of dread was overwhelming, a constant companion that gnawed at the edges of my sanity. I had to stay vigilant, to keep moving, to find a way out of this nightmare. But for now, all I could do was sit in the dim light of the cabin, gathering my strength for whatever lay ahead. The silence of the cabin was broken only by the crackling of the fire. The warmth of the flames provided a false sense of security, a fleeting comfort in the otherwise oppressive stillness of the night. But as the minutes ticked by, I became aware of another sound. It was subtle at first, almost imperceptible, blending with the rhythmic ticking of the clock. But soon it grew louder, more distinct and undeniably real. A low, guttural growling coming from just outside the cabin walls. The sound was primal, filled with a menacing hunger that sent shivers down my spine. It was as if the darkness itself had come alive, wrapping the cabin in a suffocating embrace. I froze, my blood turning to ice. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to hide, but there was nowhere to go. The walls of the cabin felt like a fragile barrier, barely keeping the terror at bay. It was back, and it was close, very close. The memories of past encounters flooded my mind, each one more horrifying than the last. I knew what it was capable of, and the thought of facing it again filled me with dread. I crept towards the single window, peering out into the darkness. The night was thick with shadows, each one seeming to move and shift with a life of its own. My breath fogged up the glass, and I wiped it away with a trembling hand. The growling intensified, joined now by the scraping of claws against wood. The sound was like nails on a chalkboard, grating and relentless. I could almost feel the vibrations through the floorboards, each scrape a reminder of the danger lurking just outside. I backed away from the window, my heart pounding against my ribs. The fear was palpable, a living, breathing entity that threatened to consume me. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud and frantic, echoing in the silence of the cabin. They were surrounding the cabin, and they were hungry. The shadows outside seemed to multiply, each one a potential threat. I knew I had to stay calm, to think clearly, but the terror was overwhelming. The cabin, once a sanctuary, now felt like a trap, and I was the prey. I scanned the cabin desperately, searching for any way to defend myself. But there was nothing, no weapons, no tools, no way to bar the door or windows. I was trapped. The growling outside grew louder, more insistent. The creatures were testing the cabin's defenses, searching for a way in. I knew it was only a matter of time before they found one. I sank to the floor, my back against the wall, despair washing over me. I was alone, helpless and utterly outmatched. There was no escape, no hope. The first board splintered, giving way under the relentless assault. A low growl, closer now, sent shivers down my spine. They were inside. I squeezed my eyes shut, my breath catching in my throat. I could hear them moving in the darkness, their heavy breathing, the soft padding of their paws on the wooden floor. The smell hit me then, a wave of fetid breath and rotting flesh. I gagged, my stomach churning. They were toying with me, savouring my terror. And then, silence. I opened my eyes, my heart pounding against my ribs. The cabin was empty. Had they gone? Relief, sweet and fleeting, washed over me. Then I saw it. a single blood-red eye staring at me from the darkest corner of the cabin. It blinked, slow and deliberate, and a low growl rumbled through the room. I was wrong. They hadn't gone. They were just waiting for the right moment to strike. I was trapped, alone in the darkness with creatures of nightmare, and I knew, with chilling certainty, that this was only the beginning.